Buenos días, mi gente de Rochester, y bienvenido a su Hora Informativa. Mi nombre es Ida Perez y para mí es un verdadero placer poder estar con ustedes en esta mañana. Su Hora Informativa es un programa que les trae información importante que esperamos que los inspire a una mejor calidad de vida para usted y su familia. Cubrimos información sobre los campos de salud, educación, empleo, vivienda y muchos otros temas más que nos afectan como persona y como pueblo. Su Hora Informativa está aquí todos los sábados de 10 a 11 de la mañana y hoy estamos muy contentos. Tenemos dos doctoras aquí con nosotros de Rochester Regional Health que nos van a estar hablando de ciertos temas y le voy a pedir a cada una de ellas que se presente, que nos diga su nombre, qué exactamente están haciendo en Rochester Regional Health y de dónde son originalmente. So, for Dr. Wilson, I was just saying that, I'm very happy to have two doctors with us today from Rochester Regional Health. I'm going to ask you each to introduce yourself, tell us your name, what exactly do you do at Rochester Regional Health, and where are you originally from? So I don't know which one of you wants to start.
I can start. Good
Okay.
morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Lakia Wilson. I am a pediatrician adolescent medicine specialist at Rochester Regional Health. I have many different titles. One's that I'm most proud of is Medical Director of Community Pediatrics and Wellness. And I am the CEO of Regional Health Services, which oversees our federally qualified health sites here in Rochester. So I am actually born and raised here in Rochester,
Nice.
and I have no intentions of leaving anytime soon.
And where were your family originally from?
Rochester, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah,
Nobody came from the South?
So
or-
my grandparents, when
Okay.
they were young, from Macon, Georgia, and Mississippi.
Okay. And what brought them up north?
Better jobs, better
Yeah.
opportunity, education for their children.
Okay, yeah. And that's why we like to ask those questions, because usually people either come because of, better conditions of living or work, sometimes love, right? They follow love. And so we like to see what made people move all the way over here. Because people always talking about Rochester, oh, it's too cold, I'm ready to move, this and that. But then there's so many people that come and stay here and love it.
Or
here.
they come back.
Yeah, or
right?
like you, that I'm not planning to go anywhere. I'm
Right.
staying right here in Rochester, which is great. What about you?
Soy la doctora Fatma Akmeshe. Yo trabajo en la Centro de Familia Clinton Family Health Center. Hace desde 2007 estoy trabajando ahí. También yo trabajo con pacientes de todas las edades y gente con avicio, dependencia, alcohol. Mi familia originalmente viene de Turquía, pero vivimos mucho tiempo en Nueva York, la ciudad, y estamos en Rochester ahora y estamos muy felices y contentas.
¿Y qué los trajeron a ellos a Nueva York?
Fue porque mi padre tenía una oportunidad de educarse por electrical engineering. Entonces,
Ingeniero electrónico.
yes. Entonces nos trajo y lo que es después es historia.
Sí, sí. ¿Y a dónde aprendiste a hablar español?
El barrio donde yo estaba creciendo fue en Brooklyn y después en Bushwick, entonces mucha gente hispano. También cuando fui a mi residencia en Fresno, California, mucha gente hispano, so nadie quiere esperar un traductor. El paciente le mire y uno quiere tratar de hablar.
Sí.
So, por tener algunos años en secundario estudiando y después practicando con la gente.
Sí, sí. That's awesome. She literally learned, from people in her neighborhood and wanting to be able to translate quickly for her patients and not having to wait for a translator. But you speak it fairly well.
Sí, gracias. Maybe fue más fácil porque nuestra familia habla Turkish. So quizás, pero Turkish es poco diferente que los lenguas románticas.
Yeah. Y quizás porque ya eras bilingüe. Si hablabas inglés y hablabas Turkish,
quizás.
se te hizo más fácil aprender un tercer idioma, porque así es que funciona el cerebro de los niños. Se le hace más fácil a un niño aprender varios idiomas que a un adulto. So, yeah, you were in the perfect place, perfect setting for that to happen.
Yeah, mucho agradecimiento.
Yeah.
por
She is
eso.
impressive. She's
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
Entonces, olvidé de mencionar que soy el Medical Director de la FQHC y trabajo
Sí.
junto con Doctora Wilson.
See. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us a little bit about the clinics that you guys are working in the community, because, you know, I go to one of, that's where my primary doctor is, the one on Orchard, and, you know, great service there. And some people may not know about them. So tell us a little bit
Absolutely. So we have 22 sites throughout Rochester and beyond Monroe County. We provide primary care, so that means pediatrics, adult care. We have a lot of family medicine practices. We also have women health, and we have dentistry.
Wow.
And so we really pride ourselves on taking care of the community, wrapping our arms around the community, and providing care regardless of the ability to pay.
Right. So, la pregunta era, ¿verdad? Ustedes son parte de estas clínicas que están a través de la comunidad. Háblanos un poquito de eso, de lo que ella mencionó.
Sí, trabajamos por Federally Qualified Health Centers. Eso es una designación muy importante para acoger beneficio para nuestra paciente. Muchos no tienen mucho ingreso, entonces están abajo de la definición de pobreza. Y nosotros sentimos mucho orgullo trabajando con nuestra población, porque sí puede ser gente pobre, pero ellos son ser humano, y ser humano necesita coger el mejor tratamiento posible.
Claro. Y están en 22 localizaciones a través de la ciudad.
Sí, nosotros tenemos nuestra clínica en la Clinton, en la Reedman Center trabaja Doctora Wilson. Hay sitios afuera de nuestro condado también.
Okay, yeah, cool. You know, she mentioned, you know, regardless of what people are able to pay, you know, these clinics are there to serve them, you know, with dignity and quality. You know, and I'm a patient. I pay for my insurance. I could probably go anywhere I want to, but I chose a community clinic, one, because it was convenient. It happens that I was looking for a new doctor because our doctor had passed away, and I was looking for a new doctor. I happened to be at 17 school. I was there with Ibero doing something else, and they had like some recruitment tables, and, you know, they were talking about the clinic. I was like, you know, I'm looking for a doctor, and they're like, oh, we'll take you as a patient. You know, and I don't see it any different from any other place that I could possibly go. The service there is great. You know, I love my doctor. She really gets on me about my weight and things of that nature. But, you know, I don't even see it. Like, I don't even think about, you know, the population that you may be serving and whether they're, you know, considered in poverty or they can't pay or anything like that. Like, I couldn't tell that by just going into the clinic. So I just wanted to mention that in case people are thinking, oh, maybe that's for a certain population. No, I think it's for anybody.
It's for anyone and everybody. So
anyone
absolutely.
and everyone, yes. Because like I said, I could probably go anywhere I want, but, you know, they happened to be there when and this was years ago, you know, this is over 10 years ago. You know, I happened to be at the school, you know, I was looking for a doctor, and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And at that time I was doing a lot of work at 17 school, so it's convenient to have it right there, and it still is, and I really enjoy it there. So thank you for having those places close to where we are and to make it convenient for folks. But today we're going to be talking about vaccinations. Vaccinations, and I know that you know, people are still a little hung up with the whole COVID vaccination and things like that. So tell us a little bit about, you know, especially around this season, because we you know, you kind of push the flu season, you know, for people to get the flu shot and things like that. Why is that important, especially around this season?
So this is the time of the year that we start to see more respiratory infections, possibly because we're more indoors than we were during the warmer climate. And things are contagious. We're coughing, we're sneezing, we're gathering for holidays, right? We're around family members and whatnot. And we are really focusing on some of the major illnesses that you may see around this time of the year. So that's flu. So flu is starting to peak right now. We are still concerned about COVID. We are seeing that COVID is tending to be a little bit more seasonal. The jury is still not out on that, so we're still watching the trends on that. And RSV, this is also RSV season as well.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of cases of RSV within the daycare. That's been kind of scary because we hadn't seen as many as we have had this year. Like, I feel like this year, for whatever reason, and I don't know if there's a reason for it, we've seen it more than before. And I don't know why.
I think in pediatrics, I feel like it's still the same, but I think now we're starting to see it in our non-pediatric population. I don't know if Dr. Akamache, if you're seeing that clinically.
Yeah.
So the question, should I answer it in English?
Well, you can answer her question in English, and then I'll ask you the question in Spanish.
More awareness around the types of viruses because of the viral testing that we were all doing. So people are more aware of RSV. But I agree with you. I haven't seen too much of a difference in terms of people having respiratory infections. Usually when we see patients in the clinic, we may not always do a viral test. It really depends on how sick they are. And most people do the COVID test at home.
So, la pregunta era, ¿verdad? Estamos en esta temporada donde hablamos mucho de irnos a hacernos las vacunas. ¿Por qué es eso? ¿Por qué especialmente en esta temporada?
Creo que es tiempo para renovar la memoria de nuestro sistema inmunidad. So, no sé si le gusta decir la sabiduría de Dios o la evidencia de ciencia nos dice que es mejor vacunarse en lugar de enfermarse. ¿Por qué enfermarse? Para enfermar su familia, para dañar su cuerpo con el virus. Entonces, creemos que coger la vacuna nos ayuda para prevenir este daño y mandar la infección a la otra gente. So es importante coger, especialmente como la doctora Wilson dice, estamos en la casa más, estamos comiendo juntos, entonces va a coger el virus y realmente la pregunta es si su sistema de inmunidad es listo para quitarlo. O si va a sobrecargarse y empezar una infección. So queremos esa memoria del sistema de inmunidad refrescado, especialmente antes de empezar a ver más viruses.
Yeah. So who should get vaccinated?
That is a very good question. I recommend vaccines for anyone who is eligible. I do think it's a personal decision. I believe in informed consent and having those type of conversations with a healthcare provider or someone that you trust with medical knowledge. I recommend vaccinations for, especially in pediatric population, from the day that they're born until the end of I'm caring for them. So when we're talking about flu, COVID, those are the main two that we're thinking about at this time of the year. The recommendations are 6 months and older.
So, la pregunta era, ¿quién debería de vacunarse?
Como la doctora Wilson dice, estamos ofreciendo la vacuna a todas las personas. Y las personas que cogen mayor riesgo son los niños pequeños, gente con otras enfermedades que baja el sistema de inmunidad, y también los mayores. So, para coger suficiente inmunidad, para no tener mucho virus en la comunidad, todo debe vacunarse. No solo la gente en alto riesgo, porque nosotros que somos afuera de esta categoría de gente, tenemos que proteger la persona que puede endurar peor consecuencia de la infección.
Yeah. So, Is the COVID vaccine going to be similar to the flu vaccine, where you're going to need to get that every year in order to be safe?
I do believe that is what we're moving towards. Similar to the flu vaccine, our scientists look at the current strains that are most popular that are going to cause infection. And I feel that they're going to do very much similar to the COVID vaccine, to do the surveillance of like what strains are we seeing, which ones are most infectious, which ones are causing most disease burden, and creating a vaccine that targets those types of strains to prevent infection, and then severe illness.
Ujú, ujú. So, la pregunta era si la vacuna del COVID va a ser similar a la del flu, que todos los años hay que ponerse esa vacuna.
Yo digo lo mismo a mi paciente. Mucha gente murieron hace 100 años de flu, pero estamos vacunando cada año
Ujú,
porque este virus se cambia y tenemos que estar preparados.
ujú.
La diferencia con la COVID es antes de nuestra pandemia no tenían buena vacuna por ese tipo de virus.
Ujú,
So el cuerpo se olvida la inmunidad más rápido. So
ujú.
creo claro que sí, mejor tener la vacuna que enfermarse.
Sí, claro. So I personally, my sister-in-law was one of those folks that at the beginning of COVID got really, really sick. In fact, we thought she was going to die. Obviously, that impacted us, as a family. And so we were like pro, COVID vaccines from the very beginning because we could see, what damage that could do. And she's still, I mean, she's doing fairly well, but she still has some, she's still recovering from that, even though it's been a couple years now already. And obviously we're still within, the shock of almost losing her. But when people are still doubting that, if they're saying, should I get vaccinated? I'm not sure if I should. What if I have a bad reaction? When people are thinking those things, what are some of the things you could tell folks like that?
So first thing, I really encourage dialogue, conversation with whoever is providing care. These vaccines are new, and with anything new, we want to know the facts, the evidence, the risks, the benefits, and not feeling that we are forced to do something without that information. So again, I really believe in informed consent, and I meet my families where they're at. And so I provide the information that I have, the best that I have, the most up to date, and then the family and I can have a discussion of the risks and benefits as a family. And you're going to do what's best for your family. And if this isn't you right now, that is okay. And I would never make my families feel guilty or obligated that they need to follow my instructions or recommendations, because all I could do is give guidance. And I really feel like I share the information I have, and then it's up to you to make those decisions on what's best for you.
Yeah. And I'm assuming every family is different, right?
Absolutely.
Based on their experience, based on, their history, all of those things come into play when making those decisions.
Yes. And often my families will ask me, what would I do in this situation? And I say, well, let me explain my situation. One, I have asthma, so I have to protect myself. Two, I'm taking care of everyone, right? So I want to prevent me passing on contagious agents onto my patients. And three, I have children. And so I also want to protect my children, but I also want to protect the community. And that is why I personally get vaccinated.
Right. So, la pregunta, había hecho el comentario de que desafortunadamente nosotros tuvimos como familia una experiencia bastante fuerte al principio de COVID. Mi cuñada se enfermó de COVID y fue una de esas personas que tuvo mucho tiempo en el hospital. Pensamos que se iba a morir. O sea que ella se le complicó bastante. Y estábamos al principio, todavía había muchas preguntas de qué se debería de hacer, cómo se debería de hacer y todas esas cosas. Obviamente en el caso de nosotros, pues estuvimos a favor de la vacuna porque tuvimos esa experiencia con nuestra cuñada y no queríamos ver a nadie más en nuestra familia que pasara por lo mismo. Pero ¿qué consejo ustedes le dan a una persona que venga y le diga, ay, yo no sé, no estoy segura, tengo miedo de la reacción, qué me pueda suceder? ¿Cuál es el consejo que ustedes le dan a su paciente?
La más importante, creo, es para la persona sentirse la confianza en decir las razones, porque si yo acepto lo que quiere el paciente y ellos me pueden escuchar mis puntos como médico, esa conversación tiene mucho más valor para lo menos educar al paciente. Sí hay mal efecto de la vacuna porque estamos engañando el sistema inmunidad para pensar que hay infección. Entonces su cuerpo va a reaccionar igual se va a inflamar, maybe va a tener fiebre, dolor, sentir cansada, como está enferma. Pero la diferencia es su cuerpo no se cambia a una factoría de virus que se daña en el proceso. So, por ejemplo, yo estoy embarazada ahora, cogí mi vacuna de COVID viernes y la reacción fue mucho menos que la primera inyección. Entonces estoy más con más confianza cuando nacen los bebés que van a tener inmunidad. So, yo creo cuando gente dice tienen miedo o quieren hablar de los mal efectos, esas son oportunidades para tener más conversaciones, porque no es solo decir algo, cambiar la mente en una vez, es para ganar la confianza del paciente y que ellos salen sintiéndose escuchados.
Sí, claro, claro. Yeah, I appreciate both of you saying how important it is for you to listen to your patient, to take into consideration where they're coming from, what their experience may have been, but also sharing yours, right? In her case, she talked about, being pregnant and, having to take the vaccine to ensure that her babies, have a better immune system when they're born. So everybody can be different, but the fact that you're able to share your own experience with your patients, but also listen, to your patients, and regardless of what their decision may be, for her it's important that you building that dialogue and you're building that relationship with your patient, and I appreciate that, right? Because we as patients don't always think that doctors are thinking that way, right? Just come and do what I tell you to do, and that's it, right? But both of you have spoken about how important it is to listen to your patient, know where they're coming from, what are the reasons that are keeping them from doing that, and then dialoguing about that. And I think that's really important, and it shows why you're here, right? And why you're doing so much in the community, because you really do take those things into consideration. And I think that's really important, especially for us Latinos, because we tend to be a little eerie about doctors. And we were just talking about some, unfortunately for Puerto Ricans in particular, and there's probably other Latin countries that I don't know about, but there was some science stuff that was done, to Puerto Ricans in our island. They were taken as guinea pigs and things like that. And so that distrust of doctors and, of the government and all these other things, right, that come into play in decisions like this, often, are in people's minds, right? And so to be able to have a good relationship with your doctor is important, because then you can, hopefully change their minds about how they feel about doctors and things like that. I don't know if either one of you have something to say about that, because it's important.
It's very important. When our families from the community come in to see medical providers, we have that history of people of color being experimented on, taken advantage of, not giving the best treatment, or best medications or what have you, or denied medical care because of the color of our skin or where we live or how much money we have in our bank account. And when we come into the doctor's office, we bring that with us, right? Whether it happened to us directly or it happened to one of our family members or our parents or someone in our community, those stories circulate around, right? And I think it's really, really important for the provider to understand that history and creating a relationship with your patient and their family. Without that, it's me saying, take this aspirin with no information behind it, or not getting to know you and to know if that's best for you. And showing my patients that I truly am advocating for them. And the dialogues that we have gives them the opportunity to ask questions. You don't have to take everything I say as like fact, right? I love to have those dialogues of saying, I heard about this. Is this true? What are your thoughts about this? I would rather try this. Are you sure this is going to work? Having those type of conversations, because at the end of the day, you're in charge of your own healthcare. You are the expert, right? You are the person that's living, right? You know what you need and what you don't need. And I only can provide information and then help you make the best decision for you.
Había hecho el comentario de que agradezco de las dos, de ustedes, que Las dos mencionaron cómo qué importante es ustedes escuchar a sus pacientes, saber, ¿verdad?, cuáles son quizás las cosas que lo están deteniendo en tomar estas diferentes vacunas, quizás el historial, las experiencias que ellos hayan tenido. Estábamos hablando anteriormente, antes de empezar el programa, de cómo personas en Puerto Rico en particularmente fueron usados para ciertos experimentos. So ya viene, ¿verdad?, esa duda, quizá ese resentimiento sobre los doctores, el gobierno y cómo se hacen las cosas. Pero el hecho de que ustedes verdaderamente escuchan lo que los pacientes tienen que decir y cuál es su opinión, por qué ellos están pensando eso. Entonces, tener un diálogo con ellos para entender un poquito mejor. Y le agradezco a los dos por hacer eso y había preguntado si tenían algún comentario sobre eso, porque es importante.
Cuando hay concentración de fuerza, hay abuso de fuerza. So, desfortunadamente, en los años de atrás, nuestra sociedad fue más paternalística. Uno coge el aviso del médico que sabe mucho, tú no sabes nada. Tiene que hacer o no hacerlo.
Sí, claro.
Ahora la persona entra a mi oficina con toda la información de Facebook, de su vecino, de su familia.
Google.
Y tienen confianza en lo que ellos entendieron porque hay un efecto psicológico, se llama anchoring effect. Eso es la primera cosa que tú escuchas, eso se pone un anchor. ¿Cómo dice anchor?
Anchor es un... Ay, Dios mío. No me acuerdo. No me acuerdo cómo se dice en español.
Es una cosa pesada que no les deja mover.
Un anclo, yeah.
Entonces, mis pacientes vienen con todas estas opiniones y al fin lo que importa es si ellos me escuchan y yo escucho a ellos y fue una bien conversación con respecto a lo que ellos piensen. Eso es una mudanza para mejoría porque a veces la persona no va a coger la vacuna y uno tiene que aceptar y después aconsejar a la persona qué va a hacer cuando enfermes.
Sí.
Me habla, me llama para mandar medicina si quiere. Creo que lo que pasó en el pasado, los médicos de ahora tenemos que cargarlo sin mucho ego. Que eso no fue en manos de nosotros, pero tenemos que aceptar esta historia y esta experiencia de los pacientes. Porque sin crecer la confianza no vamos a llegar a entendimiento mejor.
Claro. The other thing that happened during COVID, that fortunately we were able to turn around fairly quickly, was how information was being disseminated, to the people in the community. I know that Ibero itself worked really hard in trying to get information, in Spanish to Spanish-speaking families. Unfortunately, and it may sound like a joke, but it's not. Our Latino population tend to not watch the local news. They tend to watch news from other places, from Telemundo and, Televisión that come from Mexico or, from other countries, but not necessarily what's happening in our own backyard. And so I know that there was a lot of concern at the very beginning about, getting information in Spanish to the Latino community. What has Rochester Regional Health and what have you guys done in particular to make sure that information is now being disseminated into, besides being on the show, right? I'm sure there's other things that you guys are doing to make sure that our population knows what's happening and what's going on and, are up to date with this type of information.
Yes, I think that's very, very important. I do think during COVID, many people stopped watching the news because there was just so much negativity out there, right? And it's like, where do you get sound information from? And I do think people are going to Facebook, Twitter, and all that stuff, right? But Rochester Regional has made some different efforts of how do we communicate with the community. For example, in school-based health, we were providing COVID vaccinations not only to the students that were enrolled, but their parents, the faculty, the community. And it wasn't just enough to put a poster to say, come and get your COVID vaccine, right? That wasn't going to work. And so we created forums, whether it was in person or Zoom or online, where we started with information, but then allowed a dialogue of a lot of questions and answers. And it was both in English and Spanish, because that was very important. School number 9 is one of our schools, and it's primarily Spanish speaking, right? We have staff that's bilingual there intentionally. And so we make sure that we are truly reaching out to the community on platforms that gets to the community, right? Also, during this time, Rochester Regional also launched different websites and Zoom chats and whatnot that were both in English and Spanish on many different topics, whether it was COVID, whether vaccination, updates on how to get in with your doctor and what have you. And both of those were in English and Spanish. And I know that we have made some changes to our website where there's like a button that you can click that will translate it into Spanish. I would say this is a great start, but English and Spanish are not the only languages.
Right.
Like we need to do a little bit better.
Yeah.
Right?
There's, so many other people that are coming, to Rochester. We also have a very high population of sign language of the deaf community. So, that's another thing that always concerns me. How are they getting their information and how are things communicated with them? But like you said, that's definitely a good start. Había comentado que, al principio de COVID hubo mucha preocupación de que quizás la información no estaba llegando a las comunidades, especialmente la comunidad hispana. Sé que nosotros por tradición vemos canales, pero no los canales locales, sino de Telemundo o de Univisión, que vienen de otros países, pero no necesariamente lo que estaba pasando aquí mismo en nuestra propia comunidad. ¿Qué esfuerzo ha hecho Rochester Regional Health para asegurar de que las personas están recibiendo la información que ellos necesitan en el lenguaje primario de ellos? En su caso, pues tiene la ventaja, ¿verdad?, que usted habla español, pero ese no quizás es el caso para todos los lugares. ¿Qué han hecho ustedes?
Entonces, nosotros, si uno mira la historia como pasó la pandemia, estamos esperando que las guías de nuestro condado Health Department que nos avisa cómo comunicar con los pacientes sobre vacunas y pruebas. Y esas informaciones fueron repeticiones en el internet por marketing y Health Hive articles y en los diferentes social media. ¿Qué es la cantidad en español? No estoy muy segura. Pero yo creo que this radio show es muy buena oportunidad para nosotros para seguir la comunicación. Realmente entró en la marqueta de información mucha mala información y muchas juegas políticas que convenzaron gente a hacer acciones contra su mejoría. Y uno puede ver la evidencia de eso cuando se mire la cantidad de muertos de COVID en los estados rojos en lugar de los otros estados. So, eso fue una muy difícil información, mandando información a la persona porque llegó tanto mala información que a veces se canceló lo que estaba diciendo los médicos.
Exacto, sí. That's very true. She was saying how, there was so much information, so much misinformation that it kind of took over, the good information and the good resources or the reliable resources that was going out there. It was pretty crazy. Like it was very concerning. I remember even myself, I made a couple of videos on Facebook just to kind of inform people, based on what I was hearing, and directed, some direction from Ibero of, okay, this is what people need to know, especially when it came to the elders, protecting them and people not trying to, the elders not letting everybody in their house, that kind of stuff, because there was so much that we still didn't know. And then after that, advising people to get vaccinated, advising people to still go to their doctors, to still get their checkups, to still take their medications. I mean, I did so many different topics, even on just your mental health, still get up, still get dressed, still go about your day. Like, don't, let it depress you. I mean, there was so much going on. at that point, and we tried to get as much information as we possibly could, and it was from everywhere, right? It was from the county, it was from the city. We were, from DMC. I know at one point we were translating things for everybody just to make sure that the information was going out there. So thank you for continuing those efforts and still trying to get that information out to folks. If I don't want to get vaccinated, whether it's the flu or whether it's COVID, what other things can I do to protect myself? I mean, I think, that's one way of protecting yourself. But what other things can people do to protect themselves?
That's another very good question. I think it's really important to know your risk, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're immune compromised, you've got to take extra precautions, right? If you're prone to get sick a lot, or you have underlying conditions like diabetes, asthma, right? What can you do to protect yourself?
Yeah.
So number one, if you are feeling ill and you have a fever, stay home. Stay home.
Yeah.
If you have to go out, wearing a mask, right? Hand hygiene, washing your hands. That's number one.
Right,
actually, it's probably number one. It's like washing your hands and what have you. So I think it's really important to know your risk, monitoring your symptoms, knowing your risk to others if you choose to go out in public. And there's a lot of personal responsibility that you can take to that. And so then for my families who do not want, say, the flu vaccine, I say, okay, where do you work? What are your risks at work? Do you have children, right? Are your children attending daycare? Are they in school? Who are you interacting with? Who is your community?
Right.
Who is your network?
Yeah.
So you have to take all of those into consideration. For example, for my patients that are asthmatics, I do tell families I highly recommend the flu vaccine, because for those who are asthmatic, the flu, if you get the flu, it may be more severe. And then I have one mom that has twins, and I said, Mom, if child A gets sick, you know that child B is going to get sick too. So what kind of precautions can you put in place? So it's a lot about personal safety, right? It's a lot about hygiene. And then if you're ill, staying home. So we're all going to get sick at some point, right? But what can we do to prevent others from catching what we have, and then making sure that we're healthy as well. And then still having conversations when you're ill, following up with your doctor, say, these are my symptoms. Typically with a regular virus, and I say regular, like we've embarked on this age of things are no longer normal and regular. What can I expect and what things can I do? Because if your symptoms are prolonged more than 7 to 10 days, that is when you really need to be talking to your doctor, say what else can be going on, and do I need another level of care? Are there other things that you need to recommend versus your rest at home, taking care, Tylenol, ibuprofen, fever, hydration, rest? Do I need more than that? Is there something else going on?
And I know that a lot of employers have, to some extent have made it easier for folks that if they are feeling ill, to stay home, or to be able to work from home versus having to come in, just again to avoid, spreading,
yes.
which is the biggest thing. So la pregunta era, si no me quiero vacunar, ¿qué otras cosas yo puedo hacer para protegerme?
So yo creo que uno tiene que entender los diferentes virus. So recuerda que el COVID se contagia muy rápido por el aire. Cuando nosotros echamos la máscara, la flu bajó también. So tener la máscara especialmente en ciertas ocasiones. So, en principio, lo que estaban avisando al médico es si el paciente ha tenido un contacto de 15 minutos, más de 15 minutos en un día, esa persona puede coger el virus. So, tiene que entender, el sistema de inmunidad puede arreglar cierta cantidad de virus. Pero si tú se sientes en Thanksgiving al lado de alguien que todavía no parece enfermo, pero botando virus cada respiración, tú probablemente vas a enfermar, porque esa comida dura 1 hora.
Sí, claro.
So, y claro que no va a ponerse su máscara. So, eso es la otra cosa, tenemos que hacer las pruebas. Hay como 3 viruses ahora, la flu, RSV, COVID, en la RSV se contagia más por tocar. Cuando uno tiene niños en el daycare o niños en la escuela, estos niños vuelven enfermos a la casa y enferman toda la casa. So, exactamente como dice doctora Wilson, uno tiene que cuidar los fomites. Fomites es cuando tú coges virus por tocar algo y tocarse su nariz, tocar su boca, tocar su ojo. So, como adultos, reducir estos hábitos de tocar, tocarse y lavar las manos y sanitizar los surfaces, especialmente cuando hay niños.
Sí, ella había mencionado lavarse las manos, ponerse la mascarilla, si tiene fiebre, si tiene fiebre y no se siente bien, quedarse en su casa, no ir al trabajo, no exponer a otras personas con lo que uno tenga, porque no sabe bien lo que uno tiene. Y yo había comentado que también los empleados han hecho un mejor trabajo en que si las personas se tienen que quedar en su casa, quedarse en su casa, quizás trabajar de su casa para que no tengan que entrar y exponer a todos los demás de eso. I remember for the child care center, because I run the child care center for Ibero, and we had to think about a lot of different ways. Okay, if we're going to do this, how are we going to do this? And one of the fortunate things was that we had all these doors. Like every classroom had a door that went out to the playground. So we made every classroom use that one door to come in and out. So we weren't mixing kids at all. They came in through that door, they went out through that door, and we weren't mixing them. We had pads that, obviously for security reasons, so we had to maintain those doors open so that people didn't have to keep touching the pad. I just keep thinking about, wow, everything that we were doing before COVID, where we were touching so many different surfaces and things, all of us at the same time, we don't know who coughed and then touched the pad, like we were thinking about those things. And the good thing about that is that we've kept some of those practices in place to avoid, right, people from getting sick, whether it's RSV, whether it's COVID or the flu or whatever. We've kept some of those practices in order to avoid some of that, the extra disinfecting and wearing a mask. Like I could wear a mask today, because I may feel, okay, I don't want to cough on anybody. I don't know, I got an itchy throat. I don't know what's going on, and I can wear a mask. It's no big deal now, So there's some good things that kind of came from it that has kind of normalized the way we live, that can also eventually help us, it's helping us because then we're not spreading as much, or, we're not touching things as much like we used to. It was just, some really creative thinking of how are we going to be able to do this without getting everybody sick, without even our coat drive that we just had recently. We used to have people sit and have a meal there. Now we pack their meal and they take it, and we've kind of kept that practice to avoid, so many people in one place at the same time. So in spite of the changes that we've had to make and having to deal with this now for the rest of our lives, we've also put some good practices in place that kind of helps us, So if we all showed up with a mask, nobody's going to question that, maybe, 7-8 years ago, they would have been like, okay, what's going on with this person? Why do they have a mask on? Like it was unheard of. And now it's just part of our normal attire and things that we carry with us in our day-to-day stuff. So where do people can go to get a vaccine? Like where can they go to get vaccinated?
So there's lots of places that our community can get vaccinated. So the health department's one. Your regular doctor is another one. CVS, Walgreens, Wegmans, they also have pharmacies that have vaccination clinics. And then there's a lot of specialized clinics, vaccination clinics. For example, in school-based health, we have 5 school-based health sites, and we are able to vaccinate in the schools. And these are for students that are enrolled in those schools, that we can give them their COVID, flu, and their childhood vaccinations and during the school day, if parents choose that is something that they're interested in.
Yeah, I just saw a commercial the other day. I think it was the first time I saw it, and I can't remember exactly what little phrase they had, like this little catchphrase that they were using, but it meant something about two. and then they show the guy with the flu shot and the COVID shot both at the same arm, same time. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. They're kind of advertising these at the same time instead of separately. Hey, you're gonna go do both at the same time and get it done and over with. So it's good to know that there's a lot of places. What about if someone doesn't have insurance but still needs to get vaccinated? What opportunities are for those folks?
And so for that, definitely the health department. And then looking at some of those specialized clinics, especially if they're ran by the federally qualified health sites, they will make sure that you're getting vaccinated.
Okay. So la pregunta era dónde una persona puede ir a vacunarse y qué pasa si tú no tienes seguro.
So en nuestra clínica, por ejemplo, estamos mandando nuestra gente a vacunarse en los pharmacies, Rite Aid, Wegmans, para la vacuna de COVID.
Okay.
Vacuna de flu estamos vacunando allá. Adicionalmente hay una nueva vacuna de RSV. Una es recomendable para mujeres embarazadas para que los bebés nacen con inmunidad y no necesitar coger vacunas adicionales como un bebé. Y para paciente mayor de 60. So, alguna de estas vacunas tiene una cuesta asociada con eso. So, cuando mandamos a la farmacia, a veces la farmacia puede aconsejar cuánto cuesta con el seguro. Si la persona no tiene seguro, como la doctora Wilson dice, tenemos programas en los Federally Qualified Health Centers y la Monroe County Health Department puede ayudar a conseguir vacunas gratis.
Okay. How does the vaccine really work? Like, how does it work, and what are some of the side effects that people can have? Because I know it could be different for a lot of people, but in general.
So there are different types of vaccines, and I'm going to talk about some broad categories. The first is live vaccine, and you may take, say, a virus, and you would give that to an individual, but it's a weakened version of that virus, so that your body will fight off that virus and be able to have an immune response that if you're ever exposed to that, you will fight it off. Because we have our natural immunity. So when we get certain colds and whatnot, our body recognizes those bacteria and viruses that are coming in as foreign, and our body attacks it, and we develop antibodies towards it. Okay. So that's more of like the live attenuated virus vaccine. There are also vaccines that we take parts of the protein on the shell of a vaccine. So it's not, a virus, so that we're not putting the virus components into the body, that your body is able to recognize that this is foreign and it's just the capsule piece. And then your body is able to create antibodies towards that. What else would you add that I'm forgetting, Dr. Akmache?
I would just say that, if we go back in history, the first time people were vaccinated, I think that they took the smallpox pustules and they took the pus and they scratched people's skin and rubbed the pus on it because they wanted to give just enough to not get sick, but just enough for your body to learn the germ. So that's the idea behind the live attenuated viruses. It sounds kind of horrifying, like you're gonna give me a virus, but we're giving you a really weakened version because it might be a better way to get immunity. When you have some live action going on, you got two parts of the immune system working. You have the cellular immunity and you have the humoral immunity. So we mostly rely on the humoral immunity when we give people the pieces of the virus or pieces of the bacteria, is that we're making antibodies. But the cellular immunity works differently. We don't really understand it very well. So this is why we have scientists who do studies and tell us which are the best vaccines. But the way the vaccine works for the most part is generally, we're faking out your body into thinking it's catching something when it isn't.
Right.
And so the side effects would be whatever that could happen similar to that illness, which is feeling run down, having a fever, local site reactions are more common. So that's when the immune system goes into that vaccine injection site and really goes to town and can cause some redness and swelling. So I think you got all the vaccine types. I can't think of anything else either.
Going back to med school days, right?
Yeah. So, la pregunta era, ¿cómo funciona la vacuna? ¿Y cuáles son algunos de los efectos que la vacuna le hace a uno?
Entonces, estaba hablando de la historia de smallpox vaccine que 100 años detrás cogieron el pus de la ampollita y rasparon el piel y echaron esa pus encima para coger suficiente germen para aprender el germen, pero no para enfermarse. So, en la misma idea, que es menos disgusting, tenemos diferentes tipos de vacunas. So, por ejemplo, hay vacunas para la sarampión y varicela y ese tipo de vacuna, que hay unas partes de la vacuna que puede ser vivo y puede crecer en el sistema, y eso a veces hace mejor inmunidad por ciertas condiciones. Y hay otra vacuna que cogen pedazos del germen o pedazos de la receta de parte del virus para que su cuerpo reacciona, lo produce y reacciona con los anticuerpos.
Sí,
So, los anticuerpos son como los guerreros de su cuerpo. Cuando aparece un virus, si es conocido, el anticuerpo se apega y dice, mira, aquí llegó una enemiga.
Sí,
Vamos
al ataque,
encima.
al ataque.
Vamos encima, que no se replica y daña nuestro sistema, y produciéndose y enfermando a otra gente. So, el sistema de inmunidad trabaja por inflamación. So, eso es, puede ser reacción localizada, que inflamación es rojo, caliente, hinchada, pero se quita después de un par de días. A veces también uno puede tener una reacción general, sentirse como uno está enfermo. Y eso me pasó con las primeras vacunas de COVID. No tanto con esta que cogió viernes, nada más poco de dolor en mi brazo, pero sí puede pasar fiebre, malestar por un par de días, pero si eso pasa, yo agradezco porque digo que, wow, ese virus me daña. Si pasó a mí, maybe me dañara más que esa vacuna.
Sí, claro.
So, es importante tomar las reacciones en comparación a lo que puede pasar con la enfermedad.
Claro. So, en otras palabras, un brazo hinchado, rojo o dolorido es mucho mejor que estar hospitalizado, porque ahora el virus te ha tumbado, te ha puesto en una condición mucho, mucho peor.
Y además, si uno coge una reacción, uno sabe que su sistema de inmunidad cogió el mensaje.
Sí.
A veces estamos vacunando gente con muy poco inmunidad o gente mucho mayor, cogen la vacuna y nada pasa. Y uno piensa que algo aprendió el cuerpo. So, tener poco de reacción es reassuring, como nos ayuda a saber que sí entendí el cuerpo esta enfermedad.
Yeah, I was one of those people that, well, I think I've always had, I've worked around children for 35 years. And so you get it all, right? At the very beginning, when I first started teaching, I would get pink eye, I got ringworm, I got lice, I got, everything, everything you possibly, impetigo, I mean, you name it, I had it. And then after a while, my body just, I could be around those things and I don't get it because my immune system had, I think it kind of helped me a little bit with the COVID stuff because, I didn't get COVID until much, much, much later, compared to everyone. And I remember driving with my niece who the next day ended up with COVID really bad, but I had a mask the whole time that we were driving. So, but I still didn't get it, almost a year went by after that. And then when I did get it, it wasn't as bad. And even the shot wasn't as bad. Like my arm was a little sore. I couldn't lift it up too much, but that was it. And I keep saying, it was working around these kids that helped me build this immune system.
I agree with you 100%. Like when I started off as a pediatrician, I got everything, everything. Like, how do I have pink eye? How do I have strep throat? Yes, yes.
Everything, but it kind of helped me, so I'm grateful for that. Estaba comentando en inglés que, trabajo en un centro de niños y creo que trabajar con tantos niños por tantos años me ha ayudado con mi sistema, que no me enfermo, no me dan las cosas como muchas personas, y a pesar de que, el COVID no me dio hasta mucho, mucho más después, y a pesar de que estuve con personas que al otro día estaban diagnosticados con COVID, a mí no me dio, pero es parte de cuando uno está alrededor así de muchas cosas, pues el cuerpo se va fortalecendo y ayuda a detener todas esas cosas. If people want more information, who do they go? Where can they call? Where do they look? Especially like places to go for vaccinations, the newest vaccine with COVID, is that available already? Can people start getting that? Where can people go for information?
So on our website, for our different clinics, there's always a phone number. And at any time you can call any of our offices, whether you're a patient of ours or not, to ask questions, and we can definitely refer you to the right place to go.
Okay. So, si una persona quiere más información, quiere saber dónde pueden ir para una vacuna, cuándo está la vacuna disponible, dónde tienen que llamar o qué deben de hacer.
Yo creo la mejor es llamar a su médico. Si la persona no tiene médico, la doctora Wilson mencionado un número que los pacientes pueden llamar. Los buenos lugares para coger información sobre vacuna es el CDC website, Monroe County Health Department. Ahora estamos vacunando contra el flu y COVID y el RSV también. So, el RSV es una nueva vacuna esta season para pacientes mayores de 60 y las mujeres embarazadas cuando llegan 32 semanas de embarazo.
Okay. So she mentioned about the RSV, for people that are elderly, and also for pregnant women, kind of new for this season, specifically for that population.
Yes, and so definitely reaching out to your doctor, because it's a new vaccine. And when a new vaccine comes out, the supply is somewhat limited, and we are learning on how to make sure all of our patients get it that are eligible.
Right.
So just having conversations with your doctor's office.
Yeah, so calling your primary doctor would probably be the best place.
Yes.
To start, I'm assuming that any pharmacy that you're accustomed to going to can also provide some of that information. So if nowhere else, if you know a pharmacy that you normally can go to, you can go to that as well, ¿verdad? So estaba comentando que también si tienen una farmacia que frecuentan, pueden ir a esa farmacia y también le pueden dar información. Pero ella dice empezar con su doctor primario primero para saber dónde pueden ir para las vacunas.
Sí, en la farmacia tienen la información, y si uno googlea VIS y la enfermedad o la vacuna, tiene muchas diferentes traducciones de explicación de la vacuna. Únicamente el RSV no tiene esa información, y uno coge de la farmacia o de su médico, es mejor.
Well, thank you both for being here today. I think we covered just pretty much everything that we wanted to make sure that the public knew about. And I like to end the show by asking if there's a phrase or a saying that you grew up with that still resonates with you today. And I don't know if either one of you have one or both of you have one that you want to share with us.
Yo tengo una palabra que yo repito a mi paciente. Digo que confía en Dios, pero amar a su caballo. So, trust in God, but tie your horse. So, ¿qué significa eso? Es nosotros tenemos una responsabilidad para hacer lo que es necesario para prevenir cosas. Y también Dios nos ayuda. So, I was saying that, we all have responsibility to do what we can to make things better, and also God can help us too. But we shouldn't just say, God will do it.
Yeah,
we have to do it.
Yeah,
too.
no, absolutely. That's very true. What about you?
My family had something very similar to what Dr. Akmache just shared. It was more of like, pray on it, knowing that we can't solve everything on our own, and sometimes we have to rely on a higher power and to pray with our community.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you both for being with us today. We really appreciate it. Hopefully you can come back at another time and maybe give us some updates on other things that may be happening that is important for our community to know. So thank you both for being with us.
Well, thank you so much for having us. This was
absolutely.
fun.
Gracias a todos por acompañarnos en esta mañana. Lo esperamos nuevamente el próximo sábado de 10 a 11 de la mañana en Poder 97.1 FM, la única estación radial latina dueña y operada por latinos, por la comunidad, para la comunidad. Esto ha sido su hora informativa, trayendo la información importante que nos inspira a una mejor calidad de vida. Que pasen una linda semana. Hasta la próxima, mi gente.